John?
There are a lot of dreamers in this country who are sort of living on pins and needles, not knowing what their fate is and has in store for them. What is this White House's message to that population of people?
I think that they should storm Capitol Hill and protest there, because that is the place that has held up this discussion. Democrats are the one that shut this discussion down by forcing a government shutdown, by being unwilling to fund the government. We lost 4 days over this process of the conversation that should have been focused on immigration reform, fighting over this CR. If they had been part of the solution instead of part of the problem, then I think we would have already been further down the road in our negotiations on that package, and hopefully we won't have problems like that in the future.
I understand that you guys have laid out your criteria for what you want in a deal, but is the president saying that on March 5th, if he doesn't get what he wants from the Democrats in those other areas, that he will begin to deport the Dreamers?
We haven't determined that. We're hopeful that we don't have to do that and that we don't have to get there. We would like Democrats to get serious about actually solving problems. They say they want to have this conversation. They say they want to negotiate, so much so that they were willing to shut down the government. If they're that willing to go that far, surely they'll be willing to come to the table and talk about real solutions and get something done.
The deportation protection from the Dreamers.
The president is the one that enforced the law. Yes, he is. That is his job as commander-in-chief. He did that, absolutely.
One other question. The president's
but let's be clear, but that is because of Congress's failure to actually address the issue. They're the ones that actually pass and make those laws, and the president gave a 6-month time frame in order for them to do that. And now I think all of America is counting on them to show up and make sure that happens.
And just one more. The president's son Eric said that the shutdown was a good thing for us, meaning politically it was a good thing for the president and his party. Does the president agree with that?
I haven't spoken to him about those comments. Stephen.
I'm hoping to give you a chance to respond to the criticism that Senator Schumer lobbed over the weekend. In addition to saying that the president negotiating with him is like negotiating with Jell-O, today the senator said that the great deal maker sat on the sidelines. Was it a concerted effort on the president's part not to reach out to him this weekend? Was that part of his strategy?
Look, what the president did clearly worked. The vote just came in 81-18. I would say that those numbers are much more in the president's favor than in Senator Schumer's favor. I'm not sure what changed for him and what he gained, other than maybe Nancy Pelosi taking a bunch of Republican members out for dinner to celebrate their shutdown. I'm not sure what other positive things came out of this weekend for Democrats. Democrat members. Kristen?
Just following up on that, in addition to Chuck Schumer saying the president negotiates like Jell-O, even Leader McConnell said he wasn't completely clear on where the president stood when it comes to some of these immigration priorities. So is the president shifting his policy positions behind the scenes under pressure from his conservative base?
Not at all. The president, as well as the administration, we've laid out clearly in a 3-page memo what our priorities are, what our principles are for this process, and we have been very consistent on that front.
Do Jason Miller and John Kelly have veto power over any immigration deal?
Jason Miller doesn't work in the administration. The only person I'm aware of with veto power in this country is the president. Jonathan?
Sarah, how is the president going to work with Democrats when he's running a campaign ad that is calling them complicit in murder? How is he actually going to show leadership on this?
Look, the president's #1 focus is our national security. He's been very strong on discussing the need for border security and tying that directly to national security. That's a big focus of both the president's campaign at the time and also since he's become president. In terms of specifics of any ad running, those aren't being done by the White House, and I can't get into any details. But his position in terms of the need for border security and how that impacts national security is something we've talked about and been very clear on.
So is he bringing the Democrats down here, bringing Republicans here, hashing this out? How's this going to be any different? We didn't see him over the weekend. He was only talking to Republicans. Obviously, if there's going to be a deal by February 8th, it's going to need to be a deal with Democrats.
Look, we've been very clear about what we want to see in any legislation, and I don't think that there's a whole lot of daylight between where we are and where the Democrats are. We certainly want to negotiate and get to a place, and we're hopeful that we can do that over the next couple of weeks. John?
Senator Schumer on the floor claimed that the deal that he had on the table from Mitch McConnell today was much different than the one that he had last week. How did the ball move forward, if it did at all, between Friday night and this morning?
Look, I think that Democrats realized that the position that they had taken, frankly, was indefensible, and that they had to focus on first funding our military, protecting Border Patrol agents, funding vulnerable children through the CHIP program. These were things that they didn't disagree with. They agreed with everything that was in this CR. The president stayed firm, Republicans stayed firm, and Democrats, I think, realized that they had to move past that piece of legislation, and so that they could focus on the conversation they're desperate to have.
So is it your contention that the deal that Chuck Schumer accepted and lauded today is really no different than the deal that he had on the table Friday?
I don't see it to be drastically different, no. Major.
Just so we understand, is there no interaction, and was there no interaction between the president and the campaign committee in the creation of that ad? Did he approve it?
That's something I wouldn't be part of that process, Major. I couldn't speak to that.
But it's an
It
important
says,
question.
Donald Trump and I approve this message.
Again, the president has some liberties that I don't. That would be something I would have to check on, but I would refer you to the campaign because they're the only ones that can speak specifically to
Podium
that
describe
issue.
that as an accurate representation of his belief about what Democrats are and what their position was during the shutdown, that they were complicit and would be complicit in any future murders because of the shutdown.
I think that if people are unwilling to secure our borders, that they're unwilling to end chain migration, unwilling to end the visa lottery system, unwilling to fix all of the problems that we have in our immigration system, and aren't willing to negotiate and actually do things that fix that system that we know to be problematic, then yes, that would be a problem and certainly allow for future incidents to take place. John?
So just Sarah, real quick, is
Sorry, let me
it a
bounce around
two-year
here.
requirement required from the president for defense spending going forward? Is that one of his top goals for the budget negotiations going forward? Not just this fiscal year, but 2 years on defense?
Look, I'm not going to negotiate with you here, but we've made clear that
Expressed
I'm not
on the Hill.
finished. We've made clear that that's certainly our preference. Steve?
Sir, we haven't seen the president for a couple of days. What has he been doing behind the scenes as this drama has unfolded?
Look, we've put out a number of readouts. He's had several different calls, both with members on the Hill. He has met with a number of his cabinet to manage the shutdown. That was a big priority for the president, was making sure that this was well managed and that it wasn't, as Director Mulvaney calls, weaponized as it was in 2013, and making sure that as we could make the impact of the shutdown have as little effect on Americans as possible. That's been a big priority for the president. I think that it certainly went much smoother than it has in the past, but also the president was putting pressure and standing firm on exactly what he was willing to do and what he wasn't, and it very clearly worked because we're back where we basically started on Friday, and the Democrats have now allowed this to move forward. Hopefully the House will move this through quickly and it'll be at the White House for the president to sign, and then we can start immediately on discussions on immigration reform.
See him, Sarah. When will we see him?
We'll keep
will
you
there be-
posted.
will there be a
We'll
signing
certainly make sure you guys are aware when that time comes.
Will we see him sign the thing, or?
Certainly possible, and we'll let you know as the timing of that still isn't finalized. We've got to wait on the House piece. There's also OMB and legal reviews that have to take place before it actually finally hits the president's desk, and so a little bit of that's just a timing and formality issue. David?
I was wondering, are we going to see him today, regardless of what the House does or doesn't do?
We'll let you know. We'll keep you posted. Maggie?
Sarah, just going back to the NAFTA discussions, does the president still have faith in Wilbur Ross? There was a report suggesting otherwise.
Absolutely. I spoke with the president about it directly this morning. He has 100% confidence in Secretary Ross. He loves Wilbur, thinks he's doing a great job, and has been a strong advocate for the administration and been a great leader when it comes to the trade discussion on steel, aluminum, and certainly his involvement in trade across the board with the administration. Dave?
After this shutdown episode, does the president feel like he can deal with Democrats anymore? I mean, for example, Senator Coons said over the weekend, he implied that the president didn't know the difference between authorization and appropriation, and there's been other leaks about conversations behind closed doors. What is the president's level of trust with the Senate Democrats going forward?
I wouldn't say it's the highest level of trust, but I think we're certainly hopeful that we can reach an agreement on responsible immigration reform. We've laid out what we want, and we hope that Democrats, we know they agree on most of those components, and we hope that they'll come to the table ready to actually make a deal and less focused on playing political games.
On immigration, you have the budget, you got infrastructure, other big things you want to get done. Is that going to be possible after this fight?
We hope so. We hope that Democrats, again, will not play politics, and they'll focus and put the needs of the country ahead of the political gamesmanship that they've been playing over the last couple of months. And we hope we can move that ball down the field on a number of issues, but starting with the budget and then moving into immigration. Thanks, guys.
Take one on Pence in Jerusalem.